wondering, it is a moment in time for all of us to kind of think about the other individuals in our house that we love. We've got to think about our entire health. And for that, today, to start the year off right, we want to think about the other comforting, loving members of our family that we don't always think about, but lead to a healthier IQ for all of us. Then, if something happens, we need to be able to call. I'm excited about Tuskegee. They created some of the best and most dynamic veterinarians in these United States. But today I'm hanging out with somebody, and I want you to hang out with them too. We've got Dr. Autumn Madden. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Well, I'm healthy today. Got some exercise, and really we're excited about hearing all the things that you're going to share with us about our animal care, what we need to really be thinking about, because these moments are not the same. These aren't moments that started, 2 years ago. We were doing something different. We find ourselves having to do something different. What are the three things that most individuals who own pets should consider during COVID?
Three things that they should consider is time. A lot of people are adopting dogs and cats right now because right now they have the time, but you also need to make sure that when things go back to normal, you still have that time. Also, you need to think about budget. Pets are not cheap. They're like having small children without health insurance. Things cost. There are surgeries that can't be helped, procedures that need to be done, vaccines that have to be given. They have to be fed as well. So you also have to think about that. And you also need to think about location and your lifestyle. If you have a busy lifestyle, you need to select the appropriate pet. If you don't necessarily want to have a busy lifestyle, again, you need to evaluate that and be honest with yourself and select the proper pet for your lifestyle.
Cool. So that gives a great understanding. Thanks for that. I really, it gives me insight. So now you know the question for all of us, what are the proper pets? Because I really like for individuals when they come to Health IQ to gain access from a real African American, Black health professional or someone who at least has some idea about our community, the culture, and some insights that we can share to help us be a better community and love our pets better and actually prepare ourselves. So, what is the appropriate pet? If you have an apartment, a house, kids, no kids, all of those consideration sets that they need to think about.
So, first things first is you want to consider where you're living. You need to, if you're renting, you need to check with your rental agreements to see what kinds of pets you can own, to see what size of a pet you can own, because some places do have restrictions. Even if you're renting a house, there are some places where you can't own a cat or you can't own a dog that's over 30 pounds. So, you need to keep that in mind. Um, and then also laws, depending on where you are, depends on what you can own. I live in DC, and in DC, ferrets are illegal to own. So that is something to think about. You also want to think about your lifestyle. Are you traveling quite frequently? Do you have a routine? That sort of thing, which I mean, it's a variety of different factors, and then do you have kids? A lot of times when you walk into the shelters and let's say you have an idea that you do want to own a dog, um, you say, hey, I have kids and I have a very busy lifestyle, I need a dog to match that. So typically with that type of lifestyle, you're looking at probably a middle weight dog, somewhere around like 20 to 40, maybe 50 pounds at the absolute most. Something that's active, so mostly like your terrier breeds or something like that. Whereas, let's say you travel a bit, but you're interested still in a companion animal, a cat might be more of your speed than a dog. So really, it honestly just depends on the individual. There's no one blanket fit all.
No, but I do want individuals to hear what you're saying about weight size consideration because I think people bring animals back that they had no idea that they were going to have to spend that much time or they needed to be home right after work and they picked the wrong animal. So I think your insight is spot on. For that individual that is now at home, but post COVID, they won't be able to be at home, should their consideration be the same? And how do they actually range? What's the most modern form of just getting pet sitters today?
So, as far as pet sitters are concerned, it really depends on where you live. If you live in more rural areas, you're probably not going to find a pet sitter unless you know that person personally. If you live in major cities, I mean, the service is pretty much anywhere. Any boarding facility, even some hospitals, some of their technicians will do some dog sitting, pet sitting work on the side. You still want to keep those considerations in mind as far as lifestyle and things like that, because right now what we're going through is temporary. So you have to keep in mind that these pets, on average, you're looking at least 12 plus years with this animal. So you need to keep that in mind, that they're not just going through the next year or two with you, they're going to be here for the long term. Um, Sometimes that also means that adopting an older pet. Sometimes you don't have time for the puppies and the kittens, and you need an animal that's more mature. That's fine too. They need love too. Um, and it's really, ultimately, it boils down to being honest with yourself and honest with your lifestyle. Don't get a dog thinking, oh, I'm gonna get a high active dog because I want to be more active. Get a dog that realistically fits your needs and expectations today, not necessarily something that's going to fit your needs for the future, because you might not get to the point where you were that active and doing 5 mile walks every
Talking about me doing a 5 mile.
day. Maybe shoe fits.
No, I think I got past 5 today, but yeah, I like it. I see a lot of my neighbors walking their dogs when they actually walk. I think the dog seems to enjoy it more than my neighbors because they literally are happy and moving and bouncing. I think they're tired of being inside too. So I think that's a beautiful thing.
They are tired of being inside. We are seeing a lot of behavior changes because of COVID, and you have owners who weren't home, who worked a typical 8 hour day, and now they're home all the time. Even the pets are stressed. They're looking at their owners like, hey, I had 8 hours of me time and now I don't. So what's going on? So yeah, so they're feeling the impact of this pandemic as well.
You think about that animal psychiatrist. I never heard about anything like that till I started watching television. And there is such a thing for the
There.
behavior. Would that ever be some practice that you'd want to think about?
So I am a general practitioner, so I do a little bit of everything. It's not uncommon for me to have behavioral consultations with owners. Um, Things to think about when your pet is misbehaving. Sometimes there's something else going on, like they're hurting. So you do need to get them in to see a vet and do routine diagnostics just to rule that out. But they feel anxious just like we do. They feel scared just like we do. In fact, since this pandemic has started, there has been an increase in anxiety overall in pets that I've seen. So, they definitely understand and process emotion just like we do.
Well, to that point, so what do you recommend for owners that are viewing this? They're really trying to figure out how to give their pet space as well as give their spouse and girlfriend and everybody in the house some space. And there are only 5 rooms in the house, and there are already 5 people there, plus a pet. The pet probably is wondering why you're laying in their basket. So, like, what's going on? How do we give our pets and de-stress our pets, given that we are in front of that pet every day and they don't get a break anymore?
The biggest thing is exercise. So do what you can to get your pet out and about and get you out and about and get some fresh air. If you do have the space to let them run around and you have the land, great. If not, just long walks, hikes on the weekends, that sort of thing. So do what you can just to keep them busy. You can also, if you wanted to, teach your dog to roll over and play dead.
How you do that?
They just consistency. Not every dog is cut out for it, but some are.
So,
Um,
so when you think about trick dogs, that's a great caveat. What are some of the best dogs who can actually do that? Because I think if you know it, then maybe you can pick the proper dog that might fit the personality. This is intriguing, Dr. Madden. I'm now really feeling like I'm glad that we had this conversation because I needed a little animal relief myself, and the idea of a little dog being able to roll over, play dead, and you know bounce a ball off their nose and talk sometimes.
Again, it depends on the dog. There are some breeds that are more predisposed to being able to do those sort of things, like your herding dogs and your more intelligent breeds like poodles, and your dogs that are typically want to be people pleasers like your golden retrievers and things like that. You might be able to teach them that. Also, they have to have the temperament for it because not every dog is motivated by the same thing. Some dogs are food motivated, and those are the easiest to train. Some dogs are toy motivated, which they're pretty easy as well. And then some dogs really you have to dig really deep to find that motivation, whether it's time spent with them or praise or something. Um, and then also just capabilities. Not every dog is capable of doing certain things, either due to age or disability, like heart disease or arthritis or something like that. So there are a few different factors to keep in mind.
Protection. Everybody wants an animal to protect them. Is it one of those things that we just assume that that's the role, or that too will require training and understanding between you and per se your dog?
It depends on what level of protection you want.
Mhm.
So if you want a full out guard dog, definitely for sure training. And then it's also very breed dependent. Um, Typically, those dogs that you're looking at are your Belgian Malinois, your German Shepherds, your Rottweilers, that sort of thing. Um, if you want a dog, and it all boils down to the human animal bond too. If you have a good relationship with your pet will want to protect you and you want to protect them to a certain degree. Will they lunge at the door if a stranger comes by? Probably not. But even having a pet will deter a lot of people from committing crimes against you in your home, just because they don't want to deal with the pet, big or small. The smaller ones, a lot of times your chihuahuas and your 5 pound dogs, purse dogs, they'll just yak their little heads off, and that is enough to deter some burglars.
Well, now that makes me think about a movie. Really.
With me.
So, what's your favorite veterinarian movie?
I would have to say Dr. Doolittle was my favorite.
Have you seen a new Doctor Dolittle?
I have.
And your thoughts?
It's different. I
Mhm.
like the Eddie Murphy version better, but
Yeah, Eddie. All right, I love that. So, if you were going to do a veterinarian show and you were going to do the black version of an interpretation of being a black vet comedy, what would it be?
oh wow. I mean, honestly, it's really you just follow somebody around for a day. It's never really a boring day. It's a matter lots of things happen. Animals are actually pretty funny all on their own. They have really bright personalities.
So, we didn't get to it, so we'll play a word game. You said Doctor Doolittle was your favorite veterinarian movie. What's your favorite comedy?
My favorite comedy would have to be Harlem Nights.
Which one?
Harlem Nights.
Mm, why is that?
Delarice is just she was everything for me in that movie.
So you like Odella Reese? Okay,
I
all right. That was a pretty big cast, though.
It was a pretty big cast.
That's a big cast, all star cast, like total vet excellence, black excellence at its best. Um, I like that. But if we had to create a veterinarian comedy, where would
Hmm.
it take place? What city? It can't be anywhere north. It has to be a city in the south. Where would you pick it?
I'd have to think on that. That would probably be a tie between Florida or Texas.
Florida and Texas. Okay.
Have
So now the movie is either in Miami, and it's a black veterinarian story. So Miami's going to probably get canceled. So it sounds like it's a veterinarian story in Houston. You spend any time there?
I have not. I would like to though.
Really? Do you know Dallas?
I do know Dallas.
Okay. So all right, we'll put a veterinarian story there. And now we've got a leading lady veterinarian. Who's going to play you?
Hmm. Hmm. That is a really good question. Um.
Okay. I play casting director every day. So, you know,
Yeah. That is a really good question. Probably. I'm not good with names in the slightest. I don't know if you've seen.
Audra Day.
Sure.
Yeah. Why not? So Audra's a veterinarian, and what happens and how does it become a romantic comedy?
Um, it can become a romantic comedy. Somebody brings in just a strange pet or an unusual, just wildlife animal, and
Name of the animal?
koala.
Koala. Okay. All right. Do I get to write some of the story now?
You do.
All right. So you opened up a veterinarian location. It's in a strip mall that you never understood, but you found it on the internet. You were breaking up with an old rich boyfriend. You had already had a great practice. You sold it and you didn't want to own a business again. And you answered a call. And so now you thought it was a strip mall, but it's actually a natural mall. And so there's this wonderful hat and this guy wears it, and he looks like he is a black between Tarzan and Indiana Jones at any moment. And he's a retired football player that has a schoolhouse on this what should be a strip mall, and he also has a gym, and then he has his whole animal farm, and he hires this veterinarian, and then she's there, and she's not thinking of love, and he opens the door and says you can have a practice and you can take in animals and be able to bring animals to people who are at home, that are in shelters that need animals for the day, and here are the kids. And he has a big bunkhouse with reentry prisoners who are helping him raise the animals on his shopping mall plaza that he's converted into this natural oasis.
Sounds like a pretty good show.
No, then what happens? It's a romantic comedy.
They fall in love. They bond over their love of children and animals, and also just giving back and helping others.
So we have to make her super bougie. So she has to hate kids. Like she just knows they're not it. And then somehow he says, somebody told you not to like them. You can't like animals and not like kids. And then she begins to think about it, that her ex boyfriend literally told her that she didn't like kids. And then she realizes that she wants kids. And she has a little girl that just tells her the whole time that she's at the homeless shelter, that she's with her grandmother and she doesn't have a mommy. And she wishes that she'd have one. And then her grandmother dies, of course, they're going to kill her. And then she needs a mommy or they're going to take her back. And then you and he have to decide, do you get married or do you, in order to adopt a baby, you say no. The guy flies in and tries to buy the mall. He doesn't realize the guy already owns it. He's an ex football player, but He's just being that other bushy guy that forgets how our race doesn't have to look rich to be rich. So he just doesn't get it. And of course, you guys decide to get married and adopt a little baby. Nice romantic comedy.
Very good story.
You and Audrey Day. I think it. All right, starring Audrey Day. Nice veterinarian story. How about all my friends that are buying horses? What are they in store for? I've got more friends, even our reality check superstar, and they actually have horses and are keeping them now that it's the pandemic. They really enjoy going out to keep horses. Is this a new trend? Are we just, back to being equestrians? What is it?
I think we're coming back to being equestrians. I think it's a lost art that is coming back because people do have more time to do trails and things like that. You don't necessarily have to own a whole bunch of property to own a horse. You can board a horse at a facility and they'll feed them and walk them and take care of them and until you can, get there and interact with them. Owning a horse isn't much more expensive than owning a large dog in most places. Horses are pretty cheap to, adopt, and there are many, many horses looking for a home. So it's understandable that the trend is definitely going that way.
Sounds fun. I mean, do you have fun? I just always think of that moment in the movie. Maybe you don't think of it, where the calf or the colt is being born. And I'm always wondering if they fast forwarded that the colt just jumps out of the womb and already can walk.
No, actually, that does happen. They are animals that as soon as they're born, they start walking.
No, that was the moment to go boom. Like it is such a moment in the movie where every time you see it, and then you think about humans, like are we slow or what? Like it's 9 months, some a year before we start walking, and horse gets him like it's on.
Well, it depends. Horses are used to being preyed upon, so they have to move. They can't sit there too long. They consume, all parts of the placenta and everything else to protect themselves from predators. We don't necessarily have to do that. We have the luxury of being on top of the food chain.
Don't mess up my picture. Dinner time for some, and I love it. But it's always the part of the movie that I love. So once again, we've got a Western, and now we can do, let's not do Texas. Where can we do our Western at?
Arizona?
Arizona. It's my home. So Arizona, and we'll pick Tucson for just Tucson's sake. For all those who would be thinking about owning a ranch or a farm, we have this veterinarian, and she has decided to start a ranch for runaway girls in Arizona. So she buys a ranch. She had sold her practice. She's rich. She didn't think she ever wanted to be married, and she goes back. I love romantic comedies.
I see.
And so she goes out to Arizona to start a girls' home. Only problem is she doesn't have any girls and she doesn't know how to get any. What does she do?
Well, she starts off by doing what she normally knows and possibly goes out, gets a horse, maybe start trying to give riding lessons, attracting some girls, having them maybe buying some more animals like a cow, pigs, having them work on the ranch, taking in troubled teens.
I can tell that you are a very smart person. You have such a joy to pose questions to and ideas, but I need you to add a little color to that.
Okay.
You've got it. Let's add a little HBCU to that. So here we go. Now, where'd you graduate from?
Tuskegee.
What's your favorite memory of freshman year?
My favorite memory of freshman year has got to be homecoming.
Homecoming. All right. And what'd you love about your freshman year homecoming?
Freshman year homecoming, it was alumni year, and I was in the band, so the alumni would come and perform with us. It was exciting to perform with them and getting to hear their stories of what it was like for them on campus, and just seeing the crowds and masses of people who just come back every year just because they're so excited about Tuskegee and just so excited about everything Tuskegee has offered them and what it's going to offer other people who are there and who will be there. And just to really experience that family vibe and just taking it all in.
Yeah. You want to ask me the same question?
I do. Where did you go to school?
Morehouse.
Huh? And what was your favorite experience at Morehouse?
Well, my favorite experience, probably speaking at senior assembly, was probably one of my favorite things. Senior year, so that was probably one of my favorite faves. Freshman year, it had to be freshman week. Like that was the moment everybody bonded, and all the senior, juniors, and sophomores were not there. And that was we had the world to ourselves outside of those who thought they were indoctrinating us, which they were not at that moment. They didn't have as many planned activities as they do now, but clearly it was a wonderful time. So freshman week for me. You decided on what day of what year and at what time that you wanted to be a veterinarian.
I have wanted to be a veterinarian for as long as I can remember. It probably started, my uncle had a farm in South Carolina, and I would actually spend my summers there. And at the time, he had rabbits and I want to say cows, maybe at the time, but rabbits and chickens for sure. And just being around that and watching him and being around them. And I figured that's what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And so here I am.
I don't. So you went to high school where?
Bishop McNamara in Maryland.
In Maryland.
Hmm.
And so, how'd you get to Tuskegee? What made you pick Tuskegee?
College fair, actually. Since, like I said, I grew up knowing that I wanted to be a veterinarian. So I primarily looked at colleges with the vet school.
For every parent that's wondering about their child and their dream, obviously you said your uncle, but just to imagine what in your heart, it's like we get the doctor and they say, "Well, I enjoyed," and they create these characters that mend the little broken toys, and she wants to be a doctor. Um, when you're a young child, how do you have that calling? How does it represent itself in high school? What are you thinking about then? And then when you apply to vet school, how'd you end up? You had a lot of choices. What made Tuskegee stand out?
Um, as far as what made Tuskegee stand out is were one of the few, I think, only schools with a hands-on program. They're the only HBC with a veterinary school. Um, and it was a new experience. I had never been that far down south before, so it was different. It was a chance to get away from home. Um, as far as growing up as a kid, I've always loved science and I've always just loved everything about science, whether it's watching chemical reactions. But what fascinated me most is just watching God's creations walk around, the ones that can't talk. Like, what are they thinking? What are they doing? Why are they doing that? How can I help them, when they need something? So, Tuskegee, once I met with them with their little booth at the college fair, it was a no-brainer of where I was going.
So you get there and you're studying. So you have to graduate and then you start the program, or how does that work?
So yeah, you get there, you go through your undergraduate program, in which case my major was animal science. So with Tuskegee's more of an agricultural based school, so they stick you out on a farm and they're like, here you go for it. So each year it's like a different farm animal. Um, and then you get to your senior year and you apply to different vet schools. In my case, I actually did take some time off. I went back home to take care of my dad. He was very sick. And then after that, I proceeded to, go to vet school, but most people go straight through. It worked in my favor to do Tuskegee just because Tuskegee does hold slots for students who went to undergrad there.
You mentioned, this is health IQ. And for me, I understand being a caretaker. What's that like, and what should people know? Because we're in that moment where COVID's here, and we have to begin to take care of our parents. Some can't even visit now. What do you recommend we do, and what tips do you have for people who are caretakers trying to take care of parents and loved ones?
Um, in today's culture, it's a bit difficult and challenging just because of COVID. If you are around your family members who are older and you're taking care of them, make sure that you wear your full protective equipment each and every time. And this isn't to protect you, it's to protect your loved one. Make sure that you're constantly washing your hands, making sure that if you don't feel well, that you don't come around. It's also helpful too if you can set up their electronic devices so that you can Zoom or FaceTime or whatever is easier for them to do. Um, Sometimes that means, you might think about investing in a phone or an iPad for your parents. That way you can constantly be in contact. Amazon has their devices, and so does Google. So that way, when you call, you pop up, you answer, and you guys can communicate that way. Um, there are a lot of delivery services these days, especially in the city. So if they need groceries and you typically do grocery shopping, you can Instacart and have things delivered directly to the door, so nobody has to come in contact with them. Unfortunately, it is hard, when it comes to older relatives and things like that in COVID, to try to remain in contact and not really being able to be in contact with them at this time.
It's beautiful, and I really appreciate your kindness and candor. But when you lose a loved one, like people are going through right now, what other tips do you have just for grief? Like, when you lose a loved one, how can we help our community? Because this isn't the normal practice. You're not going to have, you may not even have a minute. You may not even be at the bedside, given that COVID is creating that circumstance where you can't even be in the hospital, in the ICU. So, what do you say, and what would, based on your experience, be able to share that people can grieve and learn how to kind of move through these moments with the insight that they haven't done anything wrong, but it's just how and where we are?
So actually, it's kind of funny that you mentioned that. Both my mother and my
Going
grandmother,
back to my comedy.
not funny comedy, but it's kind of more ironic. Both my mother and my grandmother actually did pass from COVID.
Mm.
Um, as far as the grieving is concerned, I mean, just take your time grieving. Make sure you talk to somebody. Definitely talking to somebody helps, fall back on the rest of your support system and reach out to them. I took time off of work. I had to get myself together, um, and just accept the fact that, this is the reality I live in now. I'm still grieving. It,
Say that again.
I am still grieving.
No, I was really saying that because, obviously a couple of team members have lost individuals. So I send out my prayers and lights and love to you. But it's I just want people to know it's not like a you drink it and it's over. It's a moment. It's a process, and it's an open emotional wound. It does not heal, and they say with time, but sometimes not ever. So you have to just figure out a process and a practice. What are some of the processes? Because some people don't know how to lean on friends or lean into loved ones, or even like share it so that you can begin to repair it. I have this thing I say, share it so you can repair it, or you're going to leave it broke. So when we share it, you can kind of get at least the honesty and the acceptance so you can repair it. I like to rhyme.
So, as far as, I mean, you can start a journal and just start there and just vent about everything that you feel. When my mom died, I was actually extremely angry. um, and I mean, that's okay. It's a part of grieving. Um, if you don't feel comfortable talking to somebody in your circle, talk to a therapist. That's what they're there for.
We're gonna have to work on your casting. I am gonna work on you a little bit, um, because you just like, I was angry, and by the way,
yeah, sometimes that happens.
so I was angry at myself or my mom because
So, I mean, I was angry at my mom because she wasn't supposed to not come back from the hospital. She was supposed to be here. At the time, I was actually engaged, and it was like, you're supposed to help me plan a wedding and things like that. And she wasn't there. Um, and it was hard. And then anger, turned into sadness just because, this disease, like, something, as simple as people staying inside and wearing their mask, and things that Americans seem to struggle with every day. And that's something that you need to do. Wear your mask, stay inside, do what you need to do. You don't have to go to that restaurant that badly. You don't have to go to that party. The party will be there. The restaurant will be there. Your loved ones won't.
yeah, I appreciate your honesty. I'm not sure that's the emotion. It's one of those things, and we say anger, and I clearly love emotional language. So sadness is so real, and it's funny. I was sharing, because as you mature, you sit there and share. My dad passed last year, and so and one of these young guys was talking about his parents, how they just weren't blah blah blah, and I said, when they're gone, you'll just really know that all the feelings that you had, as bad as they were on that day, you would take some more of that if you could get it. And you know what I mean? It's just like, out of all the things, out of all the stuff, given how final it is, you would just take some more of whatever the bad was, just to know that they were there and could be there. So I get it. My prayers are with you, but it's so true. I mean, it's like one of those things. So, not sure. Anger, obviously, I'm script writer, so we write that, and I think the process is, obviously, anger is part of the thing, and obviously not anger at just mom, but the powerlessness that we have. Like, we're literally.
And there was definitely a lot of anger at the fact that she was in the hospital by herself. Because of COVID, you can't go see them, you can't spend time with them. And then to add icing on the cake, I actually had COVID myself. And so I was at home struggling with a fever and things like that as well. So it was a lot going on at that time, a lot of emotions, a lot of everything. When she died, pretty much just threw things around the house and screamed and yelled and the whole nine. And, I still have
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have one brother. He's younger, and he actually lives in Texas. uh, he when she first got sick, when my grandmother got sick, he flew up here to come see them, and so he could at least come see them. I was the one who drove my mother to the hospital. Um, so yeah, so there's definitely a lot of emotion there, and still a lot of processing. Especially, I get frustrated when I hear the stories online about people who swear it's not real or don't want to wear a mask, and it's just like, you've got to be kidding me. Like this, it if all it takes to prevent this disease is to wear a mask, why don't you do it?
I see where you're at. I typically don't ask all those questions. Kind of like I guess when you're in surgery or something, I'm not thinking about anything else around me. And so that's kind of my approach to COVID noise. I really don't want to talk about cell towers. So, to people who know me, they tend not to mention noise. Like, I try to stay away from the noise because my peace is so important. And so I can't listen to the noise.
And then there's, and even in my profession, there's a lot of frustration. Um, Now we have a drop off service only. So typically, most of your veterinary practices across the nation, you're not coming in with your animals anymore to the vet visits. It's frustrating on everybody's part because we miss out on that conversation that we have with the owners as far as getting a history about whatever their concerns are with their pet. Also, education. An exam is a time, it's an educational time for, hey, this is how you clean your dog's ears, or, this is how you should brush your cat to prevent her from having mats, that sort of thing. And then there's also a lot of fear. Just because when we have pets, a lot of times there are what's known as zoonotic diseases, which are diseases that can be passed from people to humans and humans to or people to pets and pets to people. And COVID-19 is definitely of a concern. Thankfully, as research shows, as far as dogs and cats are concerned, they can't give COVID to you. It is possible for your dog or cat to possibly be contaminated with COVID-19. They don't know what that means for your dog or your cat. There are other species of animals that do become affected to worsening degrees with COVID. Um, Minks, for instance, they can actually transmit COVID to humans, which is why the mink farms are in really serious trouble right now. And then I do believe tigers can actually get COVID and display the symptoms, but as far as anybody knows, they can't transmit it. So COVID, it doesn't just affect humans, it affects our animals too.
Well, that was a big question on everybody's mind. They just didn't put it in, like it didn't come in through the call. And hey, by the way, can I get COVID for my dog or cat? That's what they would be asking right now.
Sometimes I do call and ask, and I mean, the answer is no. But it is important because diseases do tend to mutate, and there really isn't as much information as we are gathering about this disease. There's probably that much more that we don't know. So to be on the safe side and to prevent this disease from mutating, if you are COVID positive, do what you can to try to minimize your contact with your animals. If that means, ordering an automatic feeder and putting that on, and, if you have a yard, let the dog out in the yard instead of taking them for a walk, and things like that to try to minimize your interaction with your animals to, if this disease is going to mutate and become zoonotic, you do want to decrease the chances of that.
Now, how do you spell that word?
Zoonotic.
Say it again.
Zoonotic.
Thank you for the new word.
You're welcome.
I like that we're actually doing spelling here on Health IQ so that we can share diseases that go between humans and their animals and pets. So I think all of the people appreciate that because it's really important that we're able to think about that, walk through this journey. This is not normal for the relationship between animal owners who really need your insight and they can't get it. Is there a kind of virtual telemedicine thing going on for veterinarians right now?
There is. I would say COVID definitely pushed that more so into fruition. Um, Obviously, the best thing is for us to have the animal right in front of us, but that's not always possible, especially not in today's world. So the great thing is we have wonderful technology and very good cameras. So there is more telehealth going on in the veterinary and human community. And that has definitely been a very helpful tool to help ease owners' minds because, of course, they're concerned about walking out and about and exposing themselves to COVID. And, we're also concerned about exposing ourselves just from our interactions with these people. There are quite a few hotline services. A lot of times, if you call your veterinarian, they will try to give you advice to get you through to the next appointment. Especially because of COVID, most of your veterinary practices are actually booked out 2, 3 weeks in advance. Um, so in order to try to alleviate some of that, we do some telehealth and hey, just give us a call and let us know how your dog is doing instead of bring your dog back in for us to see that.
Yeah, but at Health IQ, everybody didn't know that you need to clean your dog's ears.
No, not everybody knows, but now you do. You should clean your dog's ears, or at least have them make sure you go to your regular vet visits and things.
Does that include brushing your dog's teeth? I mean, I'm like all over the place when you say that. I'm like thinking of the commercial. Is the commercial true? Obviously, it's a cartoony dog, and all of a sudden he has these big teeth, and it says feed him this so it can brush his teeth. What's true and what's just part of the sale?
So you should definitely brush your dog's teeth. Um, the products that you use, it's up to you. The easiest products to use are the enzymatic ones. And the reason why is because you don't actually have to scrub their teeth like we do ours, because they're probably not going to sit that long. You do want to find a pet friendly toothpaste. Don't just go into your cabinet and pull out your Colgate because that's not going to work. You're going to cause more harm than good. You do want to get them on a schedule and do routine things just like you would do for yourself. Every once in a while, give your dog a bath. You do want to make sure that their ears and their teeth are being cleaned on a regular basis. Depends on your dog or your cat. Some of these guys need their teeth brushed daily. Some of them, at least 3 times a week to be effective if you're using an enzymatic product. As far as a lot of the nutrients and supplements and things like that you see for your pets, if you are feeding your pets regular kibble is automatically, it has to be balanced in order for them to put it on the market. And if it's not balanced, it will say so on the label and it will let you know what the dog needs or your cat needs to supplement it. So you shouldn't have to supplement with vitamins necessarily. There are circumstances where additional vitamins are needed, but for your typical healthy dog or cat, no.
Now, what kind of toothpaste was that?
There are a few different brands, any enzymatic toothpaste.
Right, but what does enzymatic mean?
So enzymatic, they're just enzymes. So there are particular enzymes, and what the enzymes do is they just break down the tartar that's on the teeth for them. So that's the enzyme's job, much like the enzymes that are in your body. Just breaks down the tartar and bacteria that are on the teeth. Because of the way the toothpaste or the product is formulated, it is safe for your pet to consume. Because what is a pet going to do while you're in its mouth and brushing its teeth? It's going to be licking its lips and swallowing. So you do want something that is safe for pet use. They have a variety of different flavors for different dietary needs and preferences and things like that. There are pets that do have chicken allergies or beef allergies, so they do make a variety of flavors. They even make flavors that are more for us than it is for them, such as mint, um, to help see the instantaneous effects of brushing their teeth and taking care of their teeth. When you do brush their teeth, if you are using an enzymatic product, again, you don't have to scrub with the actual toothbrush. You can even use your finger. And the goal is just to spread the toothpaste on the teeth, and the enzyme will take care of the rest for you. If you have a question about what products to use, there is a website. It's made by the Veterinary Oral Health Council. It's called VOHC. I believe it's a .org website. They have a list of approved products for dogs and cats. You can go on there and you can pick out a product. It's not just toothpaste that's on there. There are diets geared towards dental health. There are water additives and treats.
I'm all about the treats, you know, for sure. So we were in Arizona when we left off, and we were literally, you had this um, ranch. I don't know why you picked Arizona, but we're in Arizona. She has the ranch. She wants Wayward Girl. She puts an ad on the internet, but this is a romantic comedy. What happens?
She puts an ad in, but there is a man that comes. He has a daughter, and he's a single parent. And she is a problem child. She's been arrested a few times, and he's just frustrated and at his wits' end. Of course, he's good looking, well built. Comes in with a cowboy hat on, some cowboy boots, and he tries to appeal towards this veterinarian to take his daughter in. Uh, she, the veterinarian and him bump heads just because she feels like maybe he could do more at home to help take care of her, pay attention to her. He is a lawyer and he works all the time and he's never really around to spend time with his daughter. And the veterinarian wants him to spend some more time with her and listen to her. And
So I
maybe,
like that. So, 'cause I think you're onto something, but of course, he actually finds out that his daughter has run away and that she ran to Arizona. And then when she got into a little trouble, there was a police officer who was a female police officer who said, I know just the place for you. Turns out he had a whole school that was getting shut down in Chicago. And it was outside the city, and it was for young ladies who didn't have parents and didn't have and he all of a sudden has a net benefactor who says, if you can find a place in a very remote location and a female who will run it, I'll let you manage my wealth. And all you have to do is find a home for these 30 young ladies. All of the young ladies have a challenge. All of them are there. He has a daughter who's given him a challenge. And obviously, for all of the reasons that you're talking about, she's enjoying helping you because she sees there's a vision. And then she tells you about the fact that her dad, and you find out who he is, you look him up. Of course, you like what you see. You say that she's here and she's safe. He says, yeah, I know that. She really never goes far. She's just always doing something for attention. And she says, well, it's obvious from this email that you need to pay me and her more attention. And then he says, he thinks so. And she says, well, I'll take all 30. And he says, well, there's 31. And then y'all go from there.
it sounds like a good story.
Yeah. And then you have a whole country wedding and he moves and the benefactor who's excited about it. And turns out that he thought he'd never met his benefactor. Turns out to be a female. even though her name was Joe. And he kept talking to Joe like Joe's a guy. And she kept talking to him like she was a guy when he finally met her. And he figured out he was kind of like, is Joe strange? Is Joe different? Why is Joe even thinking about these girls? But it turned out Joe was a guy. And her whole time she had this history. And her whole time she was looking at you and putting and chiming in. You guys would be talking and putting you guys together. And then Joe turns out to be his mother, and it's actually the grandmother of the daughter that you had. Maximilian Hamilton. At any rate, great movie. Two movies and a sharing and a COVID story that is not going to have a happy ending with you getting over COVID. And literally sharing so that others who are watching Health IQ, Dr. Madden, I really thank you for being honest and the professional integrity that you deliver so eloquently. I will say, don't get mad at the noise because I say that God's never noisy. So, it's just something to keep in mind for all of us. Grieving is not doesn't have an expiration date. I try to, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna agree. Grieving does not have an expiration date. Um, you're gonna have good days and you're gonna have bad days, but they're days, and you just take them one day at a time.
And what about your journaling? Are you enjoying that? I think people are starting to really enjoy journaling now that, they see that they can get and heal. What do you take away from journaling?
I've always journaled. I've journaled for many, many years, and I've always appreciated it. It's a time for me to get out ideas that I might think are silly in my head. Sometimes I find the inspiration in them, and it's also a time for me to vent and get everything that I either want to say and can't say out, or just to even just get my thoughts together, so that way I can get them out.
So, mental health, this is our final. What do you recommend that we do to keep our mental health and obviously our lifestyles together and our pets? Because some people might get angry and want to take it out on their pet or begin to neglect their pet based on their depression. What can you say to them?
I would say definitely reach out and talk to somebody if you feel like there are many people who during COVID have lost their jobs and money is tight and you may still have a pet. There are programs out there and there are clinics out there that are willing to work with you and help you. There are some clinics who have angel funds, in which case, let's say your dog comes in and has a broken leg and you can't quite afford to fix it. If you're at a clinic with an angel fund, they can help you with that. Um, there is light at the end of this tunnel, and we just all have to get through it together. And if for whatever reason you feel like you really can't take care of your pet anymore, please, look into rehoming your pet with a shelter or a friend or something.
Super. Well, I really appreciate it. You're so insightful and super intelligent, a sister with superpowers, and truly enjoyed our moments. We're going to work on you and just adding a little color and hot sauce to that storyline. But I've enjoyed every single second that we've been hanging out with Tuskegee and Morehouse here on the screen. So I know what your favorite day was. What did it feel like when you graduated from veterinarian school? What was that day like for you?
It was like a fairy tale. It was like a dream come true, literally. Just all the hard work, all the everything, it just finally, like, everything just happened. Like, it
And
was here.
who was there?
My
Make
mom
sure
was my mom was there. Actually, your producer was there. um, and then of course my friends and things like that, they were also there, and family.
So those are the things that, as we think about COVID, the memories that we have to hold on to, the timing that we have to think about, the good times, the times that we know that we got love and people were proud of us and we made them proud. So no anger, but just lots of love, and what that was to feel like to achieve your goal and to have and know that people saw you that love you. So know that we are very proud of you, and thank you for tuning in and showing up here at Health IQ. I've been hanging out with my dear friend Autumn Madden, Dr. Autumn Madden, Tuskegee graduate and veterinarian and humanitarian extraordinaire. We'll see you next week right here on Health IQ. Peace.